All right, hello there. So today we are going to talk about linear equations in point slope form, and we are going to start off by just talking about the equation itself, and then you're going to write some equations in point slope form, and then eventually you're going to be writing equations when you're just given 2 points. So let's get started. Point slope form looks like this formula that you see on your screen here, and it's named it's named point slope form because from point slope form you can get a point and you can get a slope. And as you know, we always use the letter M to represent the slope of a line, and our points are always coordinate pairs like x comma y, and we're going to say that we're using like point 1 to plug into this equation. So we call the x x1 and the y y1. Another thing you're going to notice is that the x1 and the y1 get plugged in here in green. So that's where the actual numbers from the point go. And you can see 2 examples down below, like the 7 and the 6 and the 10 and the 3. Those are the coordinates of the point. The x goes on the right with the x in parentheses, and the y's over on the left with the y. And then let's look at like the slope goes always right in front of that parentheses. So the slope here is 2/3. This slope, I only see a negative in front of that parentheses. So it doesn't look like it's a number, but we know whenever there's a negative, there's always a number in front of a parenthesis. So it's that slope over there is -1. And then the important thing that I really want to point out is that the x and the y in the formula are literally the letters x and y. And so those are the variables. So everything else is a number except for those x and y that I highlighted there in blue. Okay, so we're going to start off by identifying a slope and a point on the line. And again, we're going to use this formula. And before we even start this, I want to point something out, that the formula actually has a minus sign, or 2 minus signs here. What does that mean? It means when I plug in a point, like let me go back a second. If I were to tell you to write an equation with a slope of, let's say 2, and then it goes through the point like 5 comma -3. When I plug in this point, it's going to be y minus, and then this will be like x1, y1, right? My y1 is -3, so it'll be y minus a -3 equals m, and then x minus x1 is 5. So what happens when I have minus a negative? Minus a negative becomes a positive. And this over here would actually be y plus 3 equals 2 times x minus 5. So it's kind of like what I'm telling you is if the point has a positive value, when we plug it into the equation, it looks like negative. Like the negative in the equation kind of like changes the sign. And on the other hand, if the point is, if the point was negative, like that -3, we plug it into the equation and a minus a negative becomes a positive. So keep that in mind when we're doing these practice problems. So I'm going to start with the slope. The slope is in front of the parentheses. So the slope is normally the easy part. Our slope is -3 here. Now let's talk about our point. Remember the x is over in the parentheses. So that x value, it's x plus 4. But what did I have to plug in to this formula to get that to be x plus 4? Because don't forget the formula has a minus sign, right? So it was x minus what? So it had to be x minus a -4. And then this over here has a negative sign as well. So in the equation, it's a y minus 2. It was just y minus just a 2. So when I plug in 2, then in the equation I would have y minus 2. So my slope is negative 3 and the point is negative 4 comma 2. Number 2, the slope in front of that parentheses there, that's that 1/2. And then the point, remember, be mindful of the signs. So the x is over with the x, but what did I plug in? X minus what gives me x plus 2. So it's x minus negative 2. And then over here, y minus what simplifies to this. So it's y minus negative 3. And then last but not least, number 3, the slope is negative 2/5. And then the point, it's what do I plug in here? Remember, the formula is x minus something, so I'm just plugging in a 1. X minus 1 would be x minus 1, right? And the same thing over here. So this is the point 1 comma 1. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go backwards. I'm going to give you a point, and I'm going to give you a slope, and you're going to write the equation in slope form, point slope form. Oh, hold on, sorry. And again, your formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so I'm just going to plug in here. This is my x1, y1, and they give me my slope, right? Y minus 4 equals 5 times x minus 2. And there you go. There's my equation. Number 2, this will be, again, x1, y1. I have my slope. So it's y minus a negative 3. Be mindful of that negative, equals 1/3 x minus 0. Now we got to do some simplifying because minus a negative becomes a positive. And then x minus 0, when I take away 0, we don't typically write like minus 0. So we can clean that up and simplify that just to an x. Okay, number 3. Let me go like this. A little tight on room here. So again, x1, y1. So y minus negative 1 equals negative 2/7 times x minus negative 9. And now I have a whole bunch of negatives. Minus the negative 1 becomes a plus, negative 2/7, and then x minus negative 9 becomes an x plus 9. So there we go. And then last but not least, again, x1, y1. So y minus 3 equals negative 2 times x minus negative 6. The y minus 3 is okay, but minus a negative over here turns into a positive. Okay. So now that we're good with like writing these equations in point slope form, we need to be able to convert them into slope intercept form. So keep in mind, slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b, right? So slope intercept form, first of all, doesn't have any parentheses like point slope does. So how do I think about how am I going to get rid of these parentheses? And also the y is all by itself on the left. Okay, so how do I get rid of these parentheses? We got to do that first. We do that by distributing. So you're going to distribute that 2 in. So the y minus 7 stays. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 3 is 6. Now I've gotten rid of the parentheses, but I got to get y by itself. Y minus 7, the opposite operation is to add 7 from both sides, find its like term. It's with the 6, so y is equal to 2x plus 13. Okay, number 2, again, got to get rid of the parentheses, distribute the 1/3. 1/3 times x, and you can use your calculator. 1/3 times negative 6 will give you a negative 2. To get y by itself, now we're going to subtract 14 from both sides. y equals 1/3 x minus 16. All right, take a minute, pause the video here. You try number 3 and 4 on your own, and then when you unpause, we'll go over them together and see if you got the right answer. Okay, so hopefully you tried these. Let's go through it. We're going to distribute this 1/5, that's slope, right? And we would have y plus 3. I'm going to go through this a little faster now because you should have done this on your own and, used a calculator. So this should be y equals 1/5 x minus 2. And then over here, we're going to distribute that 2/7. And then we're going to add 1. And you should get that. Okay, so now that's all like the basics. Let's take it up a notch. So now you're going to be given 2 points, and you're going to be asked to use those 2 points to write an equation. Now, whenever you write an equation, you always need slope no matter what form you're using. That's going to be step 1. So quick reminder, to find slope, I'm going to use this formula here. Okay, and then I'm going to pick either point. So I just pick one of them, and I'm going to write in point slope form with the slope I just found, and then rewrite the equation into slope intercept form. In other words, solve for y. Okay, so step 1, find the slope. So I'm going to call this like x1, y1, x2, y2, and it doesn't matter which one you call point 1 and point 2, but it does matter that the x comes first and then the y comes second in the point. So if I plug in, this will be 2 minus 3, because y2 minus y1, over -1 minus 4, and this will be -1 over -5, and a negative over a negative simplifies to 1/5, right? Okay, next step is to pick either one of those points and plug into point slope form. So it doesn't matter. I'm just going to pick this one. So y minus 3 equals 1/5 x minus 4, right? I'm using the slope I just found, and I'm using the x1, y1 from the point. Now, I could have used the other point, and let me just see. So look, this is that equation. Oh, gosh. Hold on. Let's get rid of that. Sorry. This is that equation that I just found with that point that I highlighted in pink. But if I were to use this point instead, look, y minus 2 equals 1/5 times x minus -1, which becomes +1. This is equally correct. It doesn't matter which point I plug in. Either one, the yellow or the pink. I don't have to do both. Either one's fine. So step 3, it's asking me to rewrite the equation in slope intercept form. And so I'm going to go through distribute, and this will be y minus 3 equals 1/5 x minus 4/5. You can use your calculator to do that, or think this is like 4/1 and I'm multiplying. And then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I know I'm running out of room, so I'm going to go over here. So y equals 1/5 x, and use your calculator, or you're adding 2 fractions, find common denominators. This is 3/1 multiplied by 5/5, and it's 15/5. So using your calculator or using, what you know about adding fractions, this is going to be 11/5. So even if I went through and solved that yellow equation that I highlighted for y, I'm still going to get the same answer. Okay, take a minute. You try this one over here on the right. Okay. So now that you've tried that, I'm going to go through this one a little quicker. So 3 minus 4 is -1. 2 minus -1 becomes a positive. And so then my equation is going to be, that's my slope. And I'll just pick this point. And we'll call this x1, y1. So it'll be y minus 3 equals -1/3 times x minus 2. So there's my equation in point slope form. If the directions just say write an equation, that's an equation, you can just keep it like that. But if it asks you to convert it to slope-intercept form, that's where we gotta distribute. So you would have y minus 3 equals -1/3 x plus 2/3, because a negative times a negative. And then add your 3 to both sides. And again, this is like 3 over 1. I need common denominator, so multiply by 3 over 3, and that's 9 over 3. So -1/3 x plus 11 over 3. Okay. All right. Let's do one more together, and then I have one more for you to try on your own. So, ready? We're finding the slope first. 2 minus 4 over 1 minus -2. -2 over, this becomes minus a negative. Minus a negative becomes a positive. And you can pick either point. I'll pick this one, x1, y1. So y minus 4 equals -2/3 times x minus -2, right? Minus a negative becomes x plus 2. So here's my equation in slope-intercept form. It asked me for, point slope form. My apologies. It asked me for it in point slope form, and then it asked me in slope-intercept form. So now I have to solve this. Distribute y minus 4 equals -2/3 x minus, this is over 1, so 4 over 3. Add 4 to both sides. Lots of fun fractions here, isn't it? And then again, either use your calculator, you need to add -4 over 3 plus 4, or convert to have common denominators. So this is 12 over 3. And so -4 plus 12 plus 8 over 3. Now I want to point something out before we move on. I could have also used this point, y minus 2 equals -2/3 x minus 1. And I'm going to really quickly show you. Watch what happens. If I distribute this, y minus 2 equals -2/3 x plus 2/3. And then I'm adding 2. I know I'm going really fast right now. But this will be times 3 times 3. This will be 6 over 3. When I add those either by hand or on a calculator, I still get 8 over 3. I still get the same exact equation in slope-intercept form. It doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter which point I plug in initially. I'm still going to get the same answer when I solve for y. Okay, so pause the video, try this problem. When you unpause it, we'll go through it together. Okay, again, first step, finding the slope. 3 minus -5 over 3 minus 1. Minus a negative becomes a positive, right? So that's actually an 8 over 2, which is a 4. Finally, we don't have a fraction. That's nice. And I'll just pick this point. So y minus -5 equals 4 times x minus 1. So this becomes plus. So there's your equation in point slope form. And then to convert to slope intercept, I'm going to distribute, right? So I'll do it over here. Y plus 5 equals 4x minus 4. And then solving for y, 4x minus 9. Okay. All right, so now that we did a bunch of practice problems together, you're going to try some on your own. And I'm just going to ask, I'm going to put up a problem. You try it on your own. And here we go. I'll put up a problem. You try it on your own. And then when you unpause it, I'll just reveal the answers for you. So I'll pause here for just a second. Read the directions carefully. You're writing an equation in point slope form. Remember, that's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 that goes through that point and has that slope. And then you're converting it into slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So pause the video, try this problem, and then I'll show you the answers. Okay, so this should be your equation in point slope form. You can see where I plugged in the slope and the point. And then when I solved for y, converted it into slope intercept form, this is what I ended up with. All right, here's one more. So now that last one, I gave you the slope. This one, I'm giving you the 2 points. So step 1, do you remember? Step 1, you got to find the slope. So pause the video, find the slope, plug in, and convert to y equals mx plus b. Okay, so when you find your slope should have been -4. So your m should have been -4. So you could have used this point or this point. If you used, if you used, let me try and get a highlighter. If you use this point here, your equation would look like this. And if you used this point here, then you would have had this equation over here. Either one is completely correct. Neither one is more correct than the other. It doesn't matter, but both, it doesn't matter which one you pick, both would solve to give you the same thing in slope intercept form, that right there. Okay. That is all I have for you. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.